So, John, we both went and saw Beauty and the Beast.
Yes.
Um, I saw it Thursday. You saw it Friday morning.
Friday morning. Yep.
Um, and so we have some thoughts on that. This is going to be our second time recording because the first one kind of didn't quite get recorded, but we want to give this a try, see how
Right.
it works. Yeah,
Well, I'll get to include things I forgot, so it's good.
good. I'm going to try to shoot to be less verbose and get everything a little more compacted. And yeah, it'll be good.
Okay.
So let's talk about context here. Disney and Beauty and the Beast have both played a pretty big role in our lives. And I think it's kind of important that we get that out of the way before we really get into the review proper. It's kind of important to say that um, we were probably indoctrinated into the Disney cult. It's like our secondary religion,
Yep.
and it's a
I
close
would say
second.
so. Yep.
Um,
There are more pictures. There's more Disney artwork in the walls of our home than pictures of Jesus.
yes, by like a factor of three, I think, at least.
Yeah, 3-1, I would say.
And growing up from basically being an infant to 6, 7 for me, I think we watched at least one Disney animated movie a day.
Yep.
Um, and so Beauty and the Beast we've seen maybe 30 times easily, to the point that
Something like that.
when the trailer came out, every single line of dialogue and almost a lot of the shots too, I was like, I remember that. It was sort of like a childhood memory that was being awakened. And it's not that I haven't seen Beauty and the Beast since being a child. It's just that I've seen so much. It's indoctrinated into there, or it's just a part of who I am. It's just deep in my subconscious. And so,
Yep. Same here.
yeah. And Beauty and the Beast, as far as animated movies go, is definitely one of the higher quality ones, or at least one of the
It was
more
the
popular.
first one. It was the first animated feature film to be nominated for the Best Picture Oscar.
Yeah, it was. It didn't win, but it's probably. I think it's also one of the only animated feature. Is it?
More, I think. I think Up. No, I think Up and Toy Story 3 are the only other ones.
Oh, really? Okay, I didn't know that. And so it's not really controversial to say that Beauty and the Beast is your favorite animated movie of all time.
Yeah.
And generally, when people are making a list of best Disney animated movies, most people would probably put Beauty and the Beast in the top 5 easily.
Right.
And so when Disney is making a remake of something that's so universally liked and praised, it kind of begs the question of why. What's the point? What's the purpose of making this? John, what is the purpose?
Well, Beauty and the Beast is, for me personally, I think it's probably the best piece of musical theater that Alan Menken and Howard Ashman wrote. Not that they ever did anything bad, but I think it stands out the most because I remember watching it as a child. I probably got the chills more from Beauty and the Beast. It's very much a sound. It has a sound musical structure. There are ensemble numbers. There are very wide, big orchestrations to it. And so, I mean, in terms of why, I mean, primarily it's to make money.
Yeah.
Remake format, remaking these classic animated films into live action films. We have Maleficent, we have Alice in Wonderland, that was the first, The Jungle Book, and Cinderella.
And of those, I'm of the opinion that you should remake movies that were flawed and that you can update. Or you want to do a mashup where you can just tell a somewhat different story. And that's what they did with Maleficent. And Cinderella is a movie that is today kind of flawed because it has some pretty antiquated gender norms in it. And so that was very nicely updated. What category would you say Beauty and the Beast falls under, if either? Or is it just a shot-for-shot remake of the original?
I don't at all think it's a shot-for-shot remake. I think that a lot of critics are calling it that. I think that of the Disney remakes that have been made, the Jungle Book is much closer to a shot-for-shot remake than Beauty and the Beast. Beauty and the Beast doesn't take as many liberties as Cinderella did. Cinderella was really a retelling. The character was almost Cinderella 2.0. She had completely different motivations for everything. Beauty and the Beast, I think, Belle was just a stronger character than Cinderella to begin with, so she didn't need as much of an update. Although she was, I do feel like Belle was very modernized. She was very much a 20th century woman or 21st century woman in this adaptation as opposed to the original. And I think there was some deepening of the narrative as well that was actually a pleasant surprise, because I think honestly a lot of people wouldn't have minded the shot-for-shot remake.
Yeah.
Simply because they'd be seeing it again, but just in from a different perspective. But I think it was very faithful to the original, but it did deepen it, and it did add some depth to it that is current and relevant.
Yeah. I disagree a little bit on this point. Well, I feel like it was a little bit closer to the original anime movies than any of the previous Disney live action remake efforts so far. But I would say it's about 80%.
More than the Jungle Book, though?
Yeah. The Jungle Book exercised a bunch of the songs.
No, the songs were all the same.
It only kept the two popular ones. It got rid of all the ones no one cared about. Changed the ending of the movie. And
no, there's 3. There's a solid 3 in there.
It got rid of all the elephant dialogue. The baby elephant disappeared. Yeah. So there's a few things here and there, but I'd say that that Beauty and the Beast was about 80% a direct remake of the animated version, and then the extra 20% is some new songs and added backstory to all the characters.
I would say so. Yeah.
Particularly all the main cast members. Yeah. I would say also if that. My personal opinion, if that's disappointing to you, then probably shouldn't see it. I would say also, though, if Disney's going to make this version of a movie, this is the best possible version of Beauty and the Beast.
I agree.
They could make.
I agree. The only people that aren't going to enjoy this movie are the ones that have made up their mind about it.
So let's talk a little more about the movie in depth. So, start with the art of the movie. You know, the way it's shot, the special effects, the set design. What things stood out to you?
Well, it's really reminiscent of Cinderella, actually. Just from start to finish, it's completely breathtaking. There's no expense spared. Everything is very grandiose, and very effectively so. I think it's just really a glorious movie to look at.
It's crazy because they rebuilt basically all of Belle's tiny little French village. It looks like it's all there. It's amazing the number of practical effects they use in practical sets. You can tell there's definitely had to have been some blue screen CGI in the background, but the castle, the good chunk of the castle was definitely built completely. Yeah. And it's kind of cool the way they went with this castle. It's done in that French Rococo style, and it's different because all of the architecture and rooms from that era are still perfectly preserved. You can go see them, and they look just as pristine as they did 200 years ago. But in this movie, it's kind of weird to see something that was so beautiful and had so much effort put into it is in a dilapidated state with crumbling walls and crusting paint on the walls.
Nonverbal storytelling.
Yeah. I will say, though, the most important special effects are the characters, because you have a lot of CGI characters. You have basically the entire castle staff as well as the Beast. I'll say that a weakness that they had to deal with, you were going to get this no matter what, is that the CGI inanimate objects, Lumiere, Cogsworth, Mrs. Potts, they don't have the same freedom that the animated characters do, and you have to kind of see a side-by-side video, but it's particularly apparent with Mrs. Potts and Chip, where you can see that they're bouncing, there's squash and stretch, and in this version they're much more static. They're almost frozen.
They have to look real. They have to be consistent with the world they're in.
Yeah, it's more consistent, whereas they're the characters in the animated film are just much more bouncy. I'd say the Beast, I wasn't sold on the design at first, but I grew to like it in the movie. I will say, though, I felt like a few of his animations were a little off, particularly in the ballroom scene. And I'm not sure if this might have been an intentional choice on the animators. He felt kind of stiff and rigid, and maybe the animators were trying to capture someone who was well-trained in ballroom dancing, but it just felt stiff to me, especially once again compared to the animated version. And I feel bad that I keep having to go back to the anime version, but it's a remake. It invites that
Yeah,
comparison.
that scene in particular, maybe I just wasn't paying attention enough, or I was just completely swept up in the nostalgia of it.
Yeah. And so, how do you think Dan Stevens did as the Beast?
Um, I feel like it's kind of a two-faceted question because there's Dan Stevens performing. I assume he had performed the motion capture, but there's
Probably.
Stevens performing in motion capture. There's Dan Stevens vocals. It's three-faceted. There's Dan Stevens vocals, and then there's Dan Stevens for his 10 seconds at the end of the film when he's actually Dan Stevens. Yeah, I guess this is a compliment to Emma Watson as well and the production in general. But I really felt that there was a palatable chemistry between the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
A lot human his face was. And I felt that Emma Watson was able to, however they set it up, however they decided to film on set, I felt like whatever she was reacting to, she was able to genuinely see and listen to and hear and produce genuine reactions to whatever she was given as the Beast, whoever it was. And then the Beast in turn as well, I felt like there was some added nuance and depth to his face and the way he reacted to Belle. And I assume that was Dan Stevens in motion capture masked up thing.
A lot of the backlash against the Beast design was because the face was too human, not
human, right. Yeah, and I happen to love that.
Yeah, I feel like the motion capture on the face would not have been as effective. And it's kind of a weird design choice because the original design of the Beast is so appealing and so iconic that as soon as the Beast transforms back into the Prince in the animated version, it's almost a letdown because the animated version of the Prince is kind of boring looking compared to any other character in the film.
Yeah,
I'd say Dan Stevens is a step up from that human version of the Prince. He looks better, and I think that might be because he just fits in with the cast better than the animated Prince does. Animated Prince does.
yeah.
And you mentioned Emma Watson. I think you had some pretty strong feelings about how she performed in this movie.
Yeah. I like Emma Watson. I think she was a very safe choice because she's got such heavy name recognition. She's already played an iconic character before, and so they knew that she was a safe choice.
And a pretty similar character. Hermione and Belle are pretty.
Yeah, they do have a lot. I think she, in terms of the way she looks, she's perfect. I think that her vocals were at best disappointing. But honestly, I didn't really have high expectations. She's not a trained singer. Musical theater's never. I guess what's disappointing is the choice they made with her was to really control her vocals, keep it really close to the belts or close to the best. She's not ever really belting or really acting in the songs. She's more being really careful that she stays on pitch, and she's it's almost saying it in half voice. It's like but because it's in a recording studio, they're able to amplify. And there's also this really subtle, thin layer of auto-tune that maybe not the it's definitely there, and it just kind of takes away from some of the character and the color of her natural voice, of any natural voice. That's what auto-tune does. It wasn't just her. There were some other voices in the film that were auto-tuned. But that to me was a little bit disappointing because the musical numbers she's in weren't as powerful vocally. However, I forgave her for whatever vocal weakness she had pretty quickly. The moment she had me was when, in her first interaction with Maurice, and this is a completely new interaction. This dialogue was not in the film. She asked him, and actually this becomes the reason Maurice is captured. She asked Maurice to bring her back a rose, and he says, "You always ask me to do that, and I don't know why." And she said, "You always bring them back." And the look in her eyes and the genuine connection between Maurice, played by Kevin Kline, and Emma Watson was so believable and real to me. The look on her face actually sold me on the movie at that point, and I was on board.
Yeah.
And I feel like in a lot of her non-musical and her dialogue scenes, she proved that she is a good film actress. And I really liked her in The Perks of Being a Wallflower. I haven't really seen much of her work or other projects aside from Harry Potter But I think this is probably the best role she's ever played, and I think she's such a captivating presence. And she's trained, but I think she is so captivating that I think she could be one of the great film actresses of this generation if she continues to pick good roles that challenge her.
Yeah, it's interesting because Emma Watson is someone who, I feel bad saying this, but I think she's more or less been coasting on Harry Potter fame for
in terms of acting, because I think she's honestly been more focused on social activism.
Yeah, she has, because she hasn't really been in a true blockbuster movie since Harry Potter. You know, she's been in a few movies that have kind of come and gone, for the most part, been forgotten, and so she had something to prove. I am not as musically inclined as you are, and don't notice things as well. I would say that Emma Watson's singing, I thought, was perfectly good. There was only one number where it was like, she's not bringing it. She's not doing it for me right now. But it was not one of the numbers that was originally in the animated film. It was a new number added to this film. So that's good. But what about Luke Evans, Gaston, one of the most likable Disney villains in a way?
I think he's possibly the best written Disney villain of them.
Yeah.
The way that he personifies what is actually the antithesis of beauty.
Yeah. And he's so well written and is basically would be the hero in most other Disney movies.
Yeah.
And there's like a mini cult around Gaston. His Gaston songs become something of a meme. The Gaston at Disney World.
Yeah, I mean, they fleshed out his military background for this.
Yeah.
Did he have a military background in? I feel like he was just a hunter in the animated film.
Yeah, I feel like he was just a hunter in the animated film as well.
That was something they gave him that was really cool.
Yeah. So how does this Gaston compare to live action?
Luke Evans aesthetically was pretty perfect.
Yeah. I would say vocally.
And actually, vocally, yeah, one of the bigger surprises of the cast, I guess I'll say. Mm-hmm. I don't know I guess my knowledge of Beauty and the Beast is both the animated film and the stage musical. And Gaston in the stage musical is a much more of a production number, a show-stopping production number. And so there's a moment in the film where it looks like it's going to be that, but then they cut it short and it doesn't. So I guess when you compare the number Gaston from the live action film and the animated film, there's not a huge difference. I guess just because it was a live actor, I was expecting that to be more of a show-stopping number. But vocally, I thought he was up to par.
Mm-hmm. I thought he was up to par, although I just wish he had the deeper, stronger voice that animated Gaston had.
As a specimen, yes, I'm intimidated. As a specimen, yes, I'm intimidated.
He doesn't have the same presence as animated Gaston, but then again, who possibly could?
Yeah, of course. It's the same problem we have with the inanimate objects.
Yeah, because in the animated version, whenever Gaston's on screen, he has this magical ability to make everyone else invisible. He's the only thing you look at. In this version, whenever Gaston and LeFou are on screen together, LeFou makes Gaston invisible. That's who you're going to be watching. And so with that, let's talk quickly about Josh Gad. LeFou is so much more of a character in this version. He actually has a full story arc. That's kind of crazy.
He does have a beginning and middle. I thought it was great. I thought it was a very appropriate update. I think he was fun to watch. He added not that it's a heavy film, but he had a lot of comic relief. And
how about we talk a little bit about the much hyped gay moment? How'd you feel about that really super gay scene?
I think I'm just really perplexed by the whole thing. I guess I can understand the motivation in allowing headlines with, Disney's first openly gay character. But honestly, openly gay should be very, very loosely used in terms of this character. I think if you decide that this character is gay and you want to invest energy into that and being empowered by that, I suppose you might be able to salvage it, but that doesn't give you a whole lot. If you want to deny it and would rather not your kids know that LeFou is gay, they're not going to have to, because it's pretty implied. There's about a 0.3 second shot that makes it explicit, and that's it. Like you literally blink and you will miss it.
And it's the second to last shot of the whole film. Literally the second to last shot. It's so weird to me because this is basically Mr. Smithers in The Simpsons. What Mr. Smithers has been doing for 20 plus years. This is basically like any PG-13 mid-2000s comedy that has Owen Wilson in it. There was a character like LeFou, and no one ever made a big deal about it.
Well, and also whoever assumed that LeFou was straight in the first place.
Actually, whoever assumed that most musical theater was straight in the first place. So it's just not that big of a deal. And I would say if you're looking for gay representation in Disney films, I would personally wait for the next.
Getting it, but don't get too excited. Yeah, Elsa is more gay empowerment than LeFou is.
Yeah, I agree. Let's do a rapid fire of the castle staff, the inanimate objects. Yeah, so I am going to say a character and cast name, and you give me like your 1 sentence or 10-second reaction. All right. Okay. Ewan McGregor as Lumiere.
Ewan McGregor. Okay, so the French accent was bad. I don't know if it's intentional or not, or if he just felt like, oh, this is a kid's movie. I don't have to really try. It kind of works in that sense. It didn't really bother me. And vocally, I think he was fine. Very different choice from the animated film, but I think that's why you remake the film, to have different.
Yeah, it was
satisfied with that number.
He was actually my favorite of all the castle objects.
Visually stunning, for sure.
Check out my French accent. It was very cartoonishly French.
Yeah, there was applause in my theater after that.
Ian McKellen as Cogsworth.
It's Ian McKellen.
Yeah.
What more do you need to know?
All right, Emma Thompson as Mrs. Potts.
Also, it's Emma Thompson, but she can sing though. That's like I guess she's played Mrs. Lovett in Sweeney Todd before, but I actually haven't seen it. No, I thought vocally very, very proficient. Actually, very impressed. And it's Emma Thompson.
Yeah, it's Emma Thompson. Chip. I don't know the kid's name. Chip.
He was very Chip.
It was Chip. Audra McDonald as the wardrobe.
Audra McDonald, so tragically underutilized, but still so perfect.
Yeah.
They tried really hard. They gave her the aria at the beginning. They had her reprise the title song at the end, and it was just breathtaking every time. Yet it still broke my heart that they didn't utilize her more.
Yeah, she gets maybe 20 seconds worth of singing time.
Yeah, they let her sing like 2 measures, and she just sounds glorious as expected. But also, it was very sad that Human Again wasn't included in the film, because that would have been another chance for her to shine and sing more. And Human Again, actually, in the animated film originally, before it was cut, but it was animated and it was added back onto the film for a special edition DVD. So I thought it was very bizarre that it wasn't included.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess, well, no, but I think the song that takes its place kind of tells the backstory that they added. So I guess I see the necessity of their new song. It's just sad. So one that's so integral to the story, for me to not be included was just kind of strange.
Stanley Tucci gets extra characterization as the...
You don't just throw Stanley Tucci into a minor role. Like, it's Stanley Tucci.
I know. And I forgot the name of the feather duster, Plumette.
Rugana Bathara, who is brilliant. I mean, she doesn't have a whole lot to do in this movie, but if you haven't seen other movies, she is very, very good.
I should check her out. I was intrigued.
She's fantastic.
Yeah. So my closing thought on the cast is like, it's basically your dream cast. Everyone was like, oh, when they do the Beauty and the Beast, Emma Watson should play Belle. And you get every single person is your dream person to play it. And everyone in the film showed up to work. No one was coasting here.
Yeah.
But you mentioned the music.
Yeah.
Let's compare the music between the 3 versions of this film.
Okay.
This is going to be your forte, not really mine. So take it away.
Oh, okay. So there's 4 added musicals. I guess the musical numbers that no musical number from the stage adaptation was added to the live action film. I think there's an instrumental version of the song Home, which is the solo Belle sings when she's captured. It was just instrumental. It was underscoring the moment. She didn't sing it. The music in general just doesn't feel as grand because of that. The songs that they did add are much more subtle. It makes sense in the world they created, the story that they chose to tell, the backstory they chose to tell. But it's a little bit sad because it would have been really great to see members like Human again, like a change in me. The saddest mission for me was the song "If I Can't Love Her," which is the song the Beast. He sings it twice. He sings it when both times Belle leaves the castle. And for me, I think for a lot of people, that's the highlight of the stage musical. That's the best addition that Alan Menken when they decided to take it to Broadway.
Was that song added as like underscore? Because you mentioned that Home was added as underscore.
I don't think it was. If it was, I didn't notice it.
Jess, my wife, mentioned that she noticed a couple of the Broadway songs were played instrumentally in the background. So I was just wondering.
Maybe it was. Maybe it was. I didn't notice it if it was, but I don't think it was because in place of where If I Can't Love Her goes, they added a different song. I can't remember what it's called now, and Josh Groban sings it in the credits. But the song was fine. It wasn't memorable. I guess most of the time what I was thinking when hearing the song is, why isn't this If I Can't Love Her? And perhaps the reason is because the person they had playing the Beast isn't able to sing to do justice to If I Can't Love Her, because I noticed in that song is he, like his co-star Emma Watson, was also working with that layer of auto-tune that just kind of dehumanized his voice.
Yeah.
So that to me was a little bit disappointing, but a necessary evil, I suppose.
Yeah. I would say the new music doesn't detract from the movie. Personally, it doesn't really add that much. I think the only one that really stood out to me was actually the Beast's solo number that comes right before the third act starts.
But it wasn't If I Can't Love Her.
I know. So
you need to go listen to it.
I do. I need to familiarize myself with it. So overall, it's a pretty good movie. It doesn't stand up to the original animated version, but it's an acceptable remake, and it's of all the remakes they could have made of Beauty and the Beast, this is probably the best possible version. Yeah. I mean, how would you summarize the film?
Well, I mean, this film has been hyped about for literally multiple years. We heard about each cast member the day that it was made official years ago. So it's almost like it was impossible not to disappoint because there was just so much expectation. But at the same time, I feel like I went into it with some appropriately lowered expectations because I read some. I mean, 70% on Rotten Tomatoes, I think, is what it's sitting at right now, which is.
I think it's in the 60s now.
Really? Still fresh, still perfectly fine, I think. But I mean, reading some of the negative blurbs kind of lowered my expectations, and most of the complaints with the negative blurbs is that it's just too much of a faithful retelling and that it doesn't have anything. But I actually disagree. I feel like there were a lot of revelations in this adaptation that made it relevant and hit me in a new way. I think the big one that we discussed was the added backstory of Belle's mother and the function of the Enchantress within the story. But for me, I thought Belle was very appropriately updated. It was maybe a little bit more subtle than Cinderella.
We're going to get into a spoiler section, talk about the stuff that is in this movie that was not in the animated version, and talk specifically about the ending. So if that would bother you, stop now. All right. So let's talk about that stuff that was added in, the added backstories. Belle's mother is expanded on. It's not that she's just not there and no one ever mentions her. It's like a very specific plot point, and you even have a bit of a flashback even. And the Beast has his own backstory, and as well as Gaston. To a certain extent, you tell that he's in the military and possibly has PTSD. But how do you feel about this adding to the movie?
I think all of it was great, and I think all of it was necessary. It humanizes these characters. These characters have to be more human because they're being played by human beings. And the actors, that psychological context for why these, fairy tale characters make these human decisions, allowed them to make human interpretations that for me were actually very touching. I was surprised by how affected I was by the end of the film, because I believed the journey that each character was on, because they had a past and there was context for every decision they made. I thought I really, really enjoyed that element of the song.
Yeah, and Belle specifically is played a bit differently. And it's kind of interesting. Belle's dad is not an inventor. He's not creating a murder death machine to show off at an exposition.
He's very smart, though, still.
He's a smart guy. He's more of an artist and more of a clockmaker. Belle actually might be more of an inventor in this film than her dad is. She is more strong-willed. She has a stronger interaction with the Beast when trading her life for her father's early in the film.
Yes.
That's a much stronger way to go. Instead of sitting and crying, first thing she starts doing is plotting her escape.
Yeah, that's. I think that for me was. I mean, maybe a minor change in this adaptation, but for me, those things with Belle were what made this film different, not a shot-for-shot remake. It was very much an update, a retelling of the story that was relevant.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, this movie clears out a lot of the plot holes that weren't really plot holes until the era of honest trailers and cinema sins.
Yeah, I really liked how Belle, when she leaves the first time and the Beast saves her life, even after the Beast has saved her life, she still has to make this very difficult and conscious decision to help him. She sees that the Beast scared of the wolves, and she goes to get back on her horse because, he saved my life, but he also put me in a cage. So I think, but she makes a conscious decision to do a charitable and selfless thing, and it makes her it keeps her strong. Belle was already a strong character, but this film just kind of ties up some of those holes and make sure she stays consistently strong.
Yeah, and it shows the Beast gets cursed as an adult. And so
we lose the lyric 10 years we've been dusting.
So yeah, the enchantress isn't cursing a 11-year-old for being a little bit rude. She's cursing an adult. And he's more sophisticated. He can read. He doesn't he's read a lot of books. He's well read. He knows how to dance better. He just has a beastly exterior. I heard one critic was actually fairly upset that the Beast brings Shakespeare to Belle. There's a scene where he rolls his eyes and groans when Belle says her favorite story is Romeo and Juliet. I'm not a woman, so I can't really tell how offensive that is or not, but I would say most English people would agree with the Beast that Romeo and Juliet is not Shakespeare at his best, but I don't know.
I think if you like poetry, if you like drama, it's not.
I thought, personally, the decision to have Beast and Belle have like a good debate on Shakespeare and on literature kind of made a little bit more sense for their relationship. Like, yeah, they actually have something in common. He's actually well educated. They can talk.
Yeah,
there
was so much added dialogue there that wasn't in the film. I love the line that she went after they have that iconic dance, which also garnered applause. And I think after that dance, he says, "Could you be happy here?" And she says, "Can anyone be truly happy if they're not free?"
Yeah.
So indicative of their relationship. Yes, she had grown to care about this half beast, half man, but you're still imprisoning me.
My favorite moment of the whole film was when Beast threw a gigantic snowball.
That was pretty great.
She throws a snowball at Beast, like, "Oh, I'm gonna get you," and he throws like a ball at her, and it's pretty funny, actually.
She actually talked about that on, I think it was Jimmy Kimmel, and she said the guy that was assigned to throw the snowball at her kept missing. She was trying to catch it with her face.
So the other spoiler thing I want to talk about is the way the film ends. It's more or less the same as the animated film, but it's a little bit different. The Beast dies right as the last petal falls.
Yeah. I think the petals falling thing actually was incorporated in the stage musical, that the objects were becoming more objects as more petals fell. But it's much more blatant in this movie. That for me was actually my favorite moment in the whole film, and the moment when I decided that I actually really loved it. I really, really did like this movie. It was worthwhile, and I was moved. I was really moved by it because I think actually letting seeing all of these characters meet their fate made them so human, even though, and I mean, yeah, we lost a lot of the character with each of these inanimate objects because they were constrained to a realistic shape, but seeing them grieve over truly losing their lives, and seeing Belle truly grieve over the beast, because he's dead. He's got like 5 bullets in him. Like, he is dead.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the voice actors, everyone's voice acting except for Emma Watson at that point. But I think Emma Watson's reaction to the beast in that moment was very genuine. I felt like she was really experiencing it. It really touched me. And then of course, to see all of those actors come to life, and we see, in human form, all these characters for the, I guess you might see them at the beginning, but seeing them it made that reunion so much more of a reason to rejoice as well. The end, I felt, was very, very effective.
In the beginning, you see the beast. He gets all dressed up and dolled up. He's basically a cross between Mozart and Amadeus and David. When the beast comes back as a prince, him and Emma Watson strolling in their perfect new clothes, while the staff when they come back, kind of same makeup that's been caked on for 10 years. I don't know. That was just something I noticed.
Yeah, I guess they could have looked really raggedy. I hadn't thought about that.
They have this thing where the castle had more interaction with the village, because of course that makes sense. If a prince disappears for 10 years, someone would notice.
Yeah, they worked that in. Yeah.
But the castle, part of the curse was that everyone at the castle is forgotten.
Yeah. And then the character, those inanimate objects were reunited with their relatives and spouses and such, that because they never remembered them.
Yeah, but the weird thing for me that didn't quite work is the village is meaner in this film. Like, they straight up hate Belle.
Except for the bookkeeper, which is actually a bishop.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's just sort of like in the animated film, it's like, oh, she's odd. In this one, they're like, ugh, get her out of here, So,
although I guess that does kind of, I guess that kind of makes sense for more. Well, it kind of justifies their very strong reaction to Maurice later on.
Yeah, I just feel like the town isn't ever really redeemed in the way that the Beast is, or the rest of the characters are. When the townspeople come back, it's like, hey, oh, we remember now, we were being so bad, and we're sorry. But it's sort of like, well, none of the other characters under the curse forgot how to love people or do anything weird. And so it's sort of like, there's one woman in particular who's almost as awful as Gaston, who comes back.
And then she's Cogsworth's wife.
Yeah, Cogsworth's wife, and you're like, oh, Cogsworth.
Well, at least Cogsworth isn't. He's not excited to see her, at least.
Yeah, he's like, oh, back into a clock. But when
you're
kind of like,
because he's the actual gay character in the film.
Because she's actually a genuinely awful person, and so it's not like oh, she's annoying, or it's not like the I'm old guy with the spouse. Oh, my favorite days are the days where she goes gets her nails done. I get time to myself. No, she's like actually an awful person, and so it was. I don't know. That was one decision that didn't really make sense to me, or didn't really work for me.
I guess it's a fairy tale at the end of the day.
Yeah,
you're asking us to believe a girl fell in love with a buffalo.
Yeah, I know, the bison romance. Yeah. Oh, well, that's Beauty and the Beast. We'll do this again. Chat, like, and subscribe. We'll talk later.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lowbro Show.